Try to remember your third birthday. Go ahead, close your eyes and reach for it. There's a cake in there somewhere, probably. Maybe a video your parents made you watch so many times that you think you remember the day when really you're just remembering the footage. You're not there. You're watching yourself from outside, like a stranger. That's strange, isn't it? You had a body that year, a brain that was working, forming connections every second, eyes that were open, taking in a birthday party's worth of light and sound and cake frosting. But the memory itself is gone. Not blurry, not faded. Gone, the way a word disappears the instant you wake up from a dream. Most people can't recall anything from before the age of 3 or 4. Some can't recall much before 6. Psychologists call it infantile amnesia, and for over a century, nobody could fully explain it. But the real answer is far stranger than babies just can't remember things. Because babies can remember things. That part turns out to be true almost immediately after birth. In the 1980s and 90s, a developmental psychologist named Carolyn Rovey-Collier ran a simple experiment. She tied a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. Kick your leg, the mobile spins. Babies as young as 2 or 3 months old figured this out fast. They kicked harder. They kicked with intention. Then she waited. A day, a week, 2 weeks. She brought the babies back, hung the same mobile, and watched. And the babies remembered. They started kicking again, sometimes after gaps of several weeks, sometimes longer, if she gave them a small reminder first. A 2-month-old was holding onto a memory. So the wiring for memory isn't the problem. Infants encode information. They store it. The mobile study proved that beyond doubt, which means something else is going on. Something happens to those memories on the way out, not on the way in. Here's where it gets stranger still. In 2014, a pair of neuroscientists named Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn, working out of Toronto, published a study that pointed at an unexpected culprit: your own growing brain. During infancy and early childhood, your brain is producing new neurons in the hippocampus, the region that helps stitch experiences into long-term memories, at an extraordinary rate. This process is called neurogenesis, and it never fully stops, but it runs hottest in the first years of life. Franklin and Jocelyn's research, done first in mice, suggested that this flood of new neurons doesn't just add capacity, it rewires the circuits that already exist. Imagine a filing cabinet where new folders keep shoving their way into drawers that are already full, knocking the old folders loose in the process. The memory isn't erased so much as it's buried under the sheer construction happening around it. Slow that construction down in a young mouse, and old memories become easier to hang on to. Speed it up in an older mouse, and memories that should have been stable start slipping away. Your brain, in other words, may have been too busy building itself to keep a stable archive of your earliest years. The very thing that made you capable of language, of walking, of recognizing your own face in a mirror, was also quietly demolishing the record of how you got there. But construction alone doesn't explain everything. There's a second piece, one that's less about biology and more about a skill you didn't have yet, the skill of turning an experience into a story. Developmental psychologist Patricia Bauer, who has spent decades studying how children's memories mature, has shown that autobiographical memory, the kind where you remember something as having happened to you at a particular time in a particular place, depends on a set of tools that come online gradually. A sense of self that persists across time, language sophisticated enough to narrate events, an understanding that yesterday, today, and tomorrow are different things. A 1-year-old doesn't have all of that yet. A 3-year-old is only starting to. Without the scaffolding, an experience can register, can even matter emotionally, without ever becoming a memory you can later retrieve and say, "That happened to me." So it isn't one clean explanation. It's construction and it's storytelling, tangled together. Your hippocampus was too under construction to keep a stable archive, and your sense of self was too new to write the captions. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If your earliest years shaped you, and they clearly did, where did all of that go? Not nowhere. That's the twist. The memories may be inaccessible, but the effects aren't necessarily gone. Researchers studying early attachment, early stress, and early sensory learning have found that experiences from your first years can shape behavior, preferences, and even threat responses long after the explicit memory of them has vanished. You can flinch at something and have no idea why. You can feel instantly safe in a stranger's kitchen because it smells like a house you don't remember living in. The record isn't in your storytelling brain anymore. It's somewhere else, written into your reflexes instead of your recollections. There's a cultural layer too. Psychologist Chi Wang has spent years comparing the earliest memories people report across different countries, and the differences are striking. Adults from cultures that emphasize individual narrative and personal achievement tend to report earlier first memories, often before age 3. Adults from cultures that emphasize family and collective experience tend to report later ones, closer to 4 or 5. Not because their brains are built differently, because the surrounding culture trains a child, earlier or later, to treat their own life as a story worth narrating in the first place. Memory, it turns out, isn't just something that happens inside your skull. It's partly something your family and your culture teach you how to do. So here's the modern mirror. You do this exact thing right now as an adult, and you barely notice. You walk into a familiar grocery store, and your feet already know the way to the coffee aisle before your conscious mind has caught up. You feel a wave of unease in a meeting, and only later realize it echoes a conversation from years ago that you can't fully place. You have opinions, instincts, and flinches whose origins you couldn't explain under oath because the explicit memory attached to them dissolved long ago while the emotional imprint stayed behind. Adulthood doesn't erase this process, it just slows it down and hides it better. Your hippocampus is still quietly filing and refiling. You're still losing details you'll swear, a year from now, you never had. Which means the 3-year-old who forgot their own birthday cake wasn't broken and wasn't unusual. They were simply doing, at full speed and in plain sight, something your brain still does to you every single day. Just more slowly and more quietly, so you stop noticing it's happening at all. Try to remember your 3rd birthday again. You still can't. But now you know the day didn't vanish because nothing happened. It vanished because everything was happening, all at once, in a brain that was still being built, one memory shoved aside to make room for the next, on its way to becoming you.